It is 6 o'clock on Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. And we are at the Lincoln City Council regular meeting. Calling to order and offering for invocation tonight. We have Pastor Kevin Nelson from Future Church.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I can speak loud enough, Tom, but don't worry.
That's all right.
I got a preacher's voice. This is a reading from Psalm 126. When the Lord restored the fortune of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with shouts of joy. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us. We rejoice. Let us pray. Lord God, it is from your hand that all good things come. Although trouble may come along in our lives, we know that that is life trying to separate us from you. We pray, Lord, that your Spirit will bond us to you in ways stronger than life can overcome. And we pray, Lord, that in this council meeting this evening, your Spirit will attend to all those who attend this meeting, keeping our mouths and our hearts and our minds unified as one community, knowing that everyone who is here tonight is here for the benefit of the city of Lincoln. We pray this in your precious name. Amen.
Thank you. And if we could stand for the pledge of allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Auditor, if we could get the roll call, please.
Councilor Landis.
Here.
Councilwoman Antonio.
Here.
Councilman Warren.
Here.
Mayor Lobo.
Here. And on the agenda now, we have number 5, the agenda approval. I would move to amend the agenda to move new business item number 12, the state auditor's 22-23 audit reports, to number 8.
Basically like that
Before old business, correct? They asked for that, yes, and to remove item 13. I did figure this meeting is going to be a little longer, so we can just move that to the April 17th meeting. Could there be a motion?
I make a motion to approve the amendment, approve the agenda as amended.
We have a first by Councilman Bjornstad,
I'll second that.
second by Councilwoman Martavia. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And so moved. Next, we have our consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, we have the March 20th, 2025 minutes, as well as the February statements.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion by Councilman Bjornstad, second by Councilman Shoemaker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And so moved. This is the point of the meeting where we allow public comment. If you have questions, concerns, or anything on the agenda, feel free to come to the podium. Second call for public comment. And third and final call. Hearing seeing none, we'll move on to the state auditor's 22-23 audit reports.
Good evening. My name is Mike Scher. I'm the audit manager of the local government division, the state auditor's office. Katie Chosnick's also with me. She was the audit in charge of this engagement. Before I get started, I want to thank the city council for having us back to conduct the audit. I also wanted to thank Tanya and Tammy had a big part in getting us our various questions answered and various items needed for an audit. Today, I want to go over the opinion of the audit we gave, or the opinion of the two audits we gave, and also talk about any recommendations, and then open up if you guys have questions also. This was a 2-year audit, a financial statement audit over 2022 and 2023. We also prepared the financial statements along with audited them. There was a clean opinion, so an unmodified opinion over both years. So that's what an unmodified opinion is. It's a clean opinion and it's the highest level of assurance we can give. So all in all, good to have an unmodified opinion over both years and over all the opinion units. The recommendation, there were 6 areas that we had for recommendation. The first one was surrounding the utility fund transfers in excess of Century Code. So Century Code limits how much we transfer those municipal utility funds to 20% of gross receipts. We noted that there was about 250,000 in excess of that maximum allowed. And the transfer that were being conducted, they were transferred out of the utility funds, the highway distribution fund. And the reason for that, that highway distribution fund was running a deficit due to it paid for the city public works building back in 2018 through 2020. So one way the city could have got out of it is just done smaller transfers back in 18 to 20, instead of just doing one big lump transfer in 2022 over that allowable amount per Century Code. So we just recommend the city just try to ensure transfers in the future are just under that threshold per Century Code. The next recommendation is surrounding debt covenant violations. Debt covenants are essentially requirements or rules that are within debt agreements that you should be following. That debt in question was the Water Revenue Bond Series 2023. In there, they had a covenant that required the city to set up a separate debt service fund to pay for principal and interest payments, and also a separate fund to pay for a construction fund to deposit the bond proceeds and also pay construction expenses. There was no principal and interest payments made in 2023, so that's not a violation. It was just there in 2023, there was construction expenses and bond proceeds that were deposited in the water fund instead of that separate construction fund. So in the future, we just recommend the city try to review all covenants of any kind of debt they do have and try to and set up any necessary funds that are laid out in that debt covenant. The next recommendation we have is surrounding audit adjustments. This is a very common recommendation we give our clients. As like I mentioned, we did prepare the financial statements. So there's various adjustments that are needed to go from the city's ledger to your audited financial statements. They're and to get on the correct accounting basis. We also had to make various entries to reclass some revenues and expenses, and that's also laid out in the recommendation 6, which I will cover. So this is more of kind of a blanket recommendation, like give you guys a heads up. Hey, we did have to make audit adjustments. It's a very common recommendation that we do get across the state. So in the future, we just recommend the city try to review their financial ledgers to ensure that they're complete and accurate to limit the amount of adjustments that are needed when preparing the financial statements in the future. Fourth recommendation was to prepare a formal fraud risk assessment. I want to specify there was no fraud found in the audit. Anytime you see the word fraud, I think some ears and eyes perk up, but this fraud risk assessment, we ask just all of our clients to prepare. It's different from a fraud policy. A fraud risk assessment is really, you're taking a look at the whole city or entity as a whole and each department and kind of identifying where fraud can occur and what your safeguards are in place to mitigate the risk of fraud to protect the city. So it's a formal assessment. If Katie hasn't already, we can share a template with Tanya. And then we just ask when that template is made by management, bring it to you guys at a council meeting and have you guys take a look at it and approve it. And add to your list of policies and procedures. The next recommendation is surrounding a conflict of interest policy. And just I want to stress there was no conflicts of interest we identified in our audit. This was just more of a maybe to consider just a policy update. I believe that the policy that we reviewed was correct for who council members were covered, but we just asked maybe to start looking at staff to see if you guys could start asking from, especially staff that are dealing with contracts and vendors, try to collect outside employment, which I think you guys are already doing, but also ask any potential family members, any other outside businesses that a potential conflict could arise. And that's just protecting the city from potential conflicts in the future when they're dealing with contracts or vendors when conducting business. The final recommendation is surrounding improper journal entries. And I touched base on this, but the reasoning or the cause of this was during 2023, the city reconciled, or excuse me, combined all their accounts into one checking and one CD account. And in doing that, they recorded a bunch of banking transfers incorrectly as revenue expense accounts. So there was audit adjustments that were necessary to correct those. So in the future, we just recommend the city try to look at not hitting a revenue expense account, but recording that banking transfer, and then to review any other fund transfer journal entries and to make sure they're reviewed and proper. To close here, I just wanted to say I kind of view auditing a little different. I view auditing more as a tool to help improve government. I never use it as a tool as a gotcha moment, or these recommendations aren't the point of that. Our goal of the auditor's office is always try to help improve government and be a resource for any local governments out there in the state. So these recommendations are just more tools for you guys to maybe look at and help improve your operations and controls that if needed. With that, I'll open up to any questions if there are any.
I would just like to point something out for those of the community then that have questions. These that 20% utility fee, that highway distribution fund that was utilized, it's not that we did something wrong, it's just waiting maybe till the end of the project to transfer it all at once rather than little bits here and there.
It's more of a timing thing, like the city could have done transfers in the previous years instead of just doing it, catching that highway fund up all in 2022. So like I said, it's just more of just a heads up that, you know, if that highway fund is running a deficit because it wasn't receiving any transfers from those other funds, because it was encumbering all the costs from that city public works building.
So it should have gone in there all the time.
Yeah, right. Instead of just catching it up all in one year, it's just more, like I said, more of a timing thing, just to take note of in the future too, that there are thresholds of how much you can transfer out of those utility funds to take note of it.
That 20%.
20% of gross receipts.
Yeah.
I think that's Century Code 40-3312. And I think it might be in the report and the recommendation later. Right too. Yeah. Anything else?
I just want to verify for even the citizens, I wasn't here in 22 or 23, but as you transferred those funds, it was just that they came in and they should have been somewhere else. The bottom lines were all the same, no numbers changed, correct?
Are you talking about the utility fund transfers?
I'm talking about all like when she closed down all the bank accounts and the
Oh,
way it
the
was
banking
brought in,
transfers.
brought out, all of
Right,
that.
so a lot of the banking transfers were recorded as actual revenue and expenses when they shouldn't have been. If you're moving money between your bank accounts, that's not actual revenue. It's just your cash is just moving from one account to another. So we just had to adjust cash or revenue and expenses down. So the fund balance didn't change. It was just more of just to reclassify some of those items correctly.
Right, doesn't appear that we have any questions or comments. I guess if there's anyone in the audience tonight that has a question. Not to put you on the spot.
Sure, right?
So, okay,
Yeah, thank you guys.
thank you very much. All right, so next we have under old business, the Jake break ordinance, second reading. Would you like to take this or? Or
So this is the second reading of a new ordinance for the regulation and prohibition of the use of unmuffled compression brakes. This will create a fine for anyone found violating this provision of $50.
So we're looking at, motion to approve the second reading.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
We have a motion by Councilman Shoemaker,
I'll second.
second by Councilman Yardstead. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And if we can do the roll call, please.
Councilman Schumaker. Councilwoman Archibald.
Yes.
Councilman Berenstain.
Yes.
And number 9, procurement and disposition discussion. Second.
So we'll have a copy of the procurement and disposition tables that I made up this last week. I kind of based this off of the table that the city of Penn goes off of. At the last meeting, I mentioned how they have 4 levels that they use. But after further review, the main difference between the 2 middle levels is one of them allows the department manager, which would be like our department head, and a supervisor to approve the purchases. Where I feel like our departments are small enough that we could probably just keep that as just the department head approving the purchases. So I combined those into one and made it 3 levels. Each one requires some form of record as far as the disposition goes. Just so there's a record of whoever the city selling items to. They have questions on the tables or concerns or recommendations for any changes.
This is what's being proposed, is that correct?
Yeah, so this would just kind of be the outline of it and then if everybody approves of like these quantities and requirements, then I'd probably talk with the attorney on actually putting in the verbiage for the code.
Did we have, I'm thinking there was something Mandan or Bismarck has the 3,000 limit?
You guys received that email from Monty with Bismarck's guide, so you guys all got that.
Okay.
It was both. It was Bismarck and that, yes.
And so that would be at this same level, or would we be? I don't have it right here for me. So at $3,000 mark, we would be more flexible than Bismarck and Mandan.
I believe
At this
they are
point.
next thing.
Bismarck is at 3,000.
Okay, and that's more than the 3,000, but less than 6 is still,
That one, I guess I'm not sure what their upper limit is.
okay, but we're still looking at 3,000 as far as the limit for,
For the list.
So the lowest,
Yeah.
I know certainly that Bismarck's is below 3,000. I'm not sure about the upper offhand. But the 3,000 is what Bismarck has, and same with the procurement. I think that is on the same level as Bismarck as well.
so we could be in alignment with that.
I feel like, did we discuss a level of 5,000 for our limit?
I think you're thinking of the procurement,
Procurement.
Okay,
because that one we had at 5,000 for the lower tier.
But then I thought it was 5 and 10. for more than 5 but less than 10?
That
And then
was,
more than 10.
that was when we were looking at having 4 tiers in there,
Oh, okay.
where the, Mangan's procurement, they had. Or the way I referencing it would have been 5 to 10,000 would have allowed department managers and or a department supervisor. who included that. And so I just combined them and the requirement is higher for the side of the department.
Yes. So with this, then um. The department head would still come to council for purchases. But the director would be able to pick which one was requested or
If
no
it's-
longer coming to council. If a purchase was
So for the procurement, if it's less than 5,000, the department head can,
just
Just-
by,
yeah, basically find what appears to be the best option. Between 5 to 15,000, they would have to solicit bids from these 3 qualified vendors. And then anything 15,000 or more, they would still require bids, but then would also have to have the council approve the purchase.
There a department supervisor that we can also put on the approval requirements for more than 5,000 but less than 15,000. Is that a position exists to the board will include a purchase that, for instance, would be $14,000.
So
So
on,
one person's not.
okay, but just make sure there isn't any confusion on Mangan's procurement requirements. They have it set up as a department supervisor or. But what you're thinking of is having a supervisor and a manager required for approval.
I like that, rather than carte blanche, here you go, here's a blank check for $15,000. I like at least, and if they're a department head, then that would maybe be a portfolio holder, at least to be aware of, or at that point, maybe the auditor, because they're the ones that are dealing with finances. I don't know if that's. I think maybe the portfolio.
Maybe going back to a 4-tier. And then, so the first tier being just the department manager, see what best option for them. Second tier, they require the bids. Third tier being the bids and portfolio folder approval. And then the top 2 be the council approval.
I'm okay with the 3-tier system, just so long as there's 2 people signing off on the second one.
So just keeping the tiers how they are and adding for the middle tier portfolio folder approval.
I think at minimum, I'm comfortable with that minimum. And my ideal would be anything over 5,000 for either position.
Like the procurement, the disposition, I'm not so worried about because that's. I think in centric code, isn't it how it has to flow?
State century code, or was that just our own ordinance?
I think it's state, isn't it?
You know, not just state.
So that isn't, and the only reason. So I'll leave that to you guys.
And I can double check just to make sure the numbers and stuff. Coincide though.
I believe Bismarck's is within range, so the number threshold will be in compliance. It's more so just the ensuring that it has the right approval. I'm not sure about the 3-tier on the state side, but when I was looking at this previously, it had the upper threshold listed.
for any city, commission approval or city council approval. But I'll just have to clarify that one also.
So other than that, portfolio owner approval for the middle years. Anybody have their concerns, suggestions?
So what is the threshold then? Was that still gonna just read the numbers remain the same for procurement in the middle section? Up to 15,000?
I guess for now, less. Suggestion,
I guess I would love to see just a little bit more oversight for anything over 5,000.
more than the department manager and the portfolio holder approval.
Like, would it be possible for the portfolio holder to make it a part of their report or somehow so that the rest of council is at least made aware to some degree of anything over 5,000?
And I don't know if that's really changing much from now where the department head would be coming in and asking for that approval at that point.
Because it is study documentation necessary here.
I think what really is the driver behind this is that if Public Works needs a tool or a machine right now to do a medium job, we don't have to wait a week or two to go for counts.
That'd be a good example of it, yeah. And then obviously this would be for all departments, you know, like the police department, they need a piece of equipment or something like that. So it wouldn't just be specific to one department.
And the fact that, you know, what does $5,000 buy?
It's becoming
Anymore.
less and less.
So. But I do like having that checks and balance with having at least the portfolio. Holder aware of the expenses that are going on. Because. What are you looking at?
I guess for tonight, I probably don't need anything else, maybe just make these couple of adjustments and maybe discuss with the attorney and see about what we need to do, put in the verbiage and get set up what. I need to work on.
Any other concerns or comments? All right. Number 10, we have the burn ban restriction proposed amended ordinance draft. This comes from section 5-02-07. I have brought this to council. It is not changing anything within the city. This is just putting the verbiage that, and I believe in your packets, you have the information from Bismarck, Mandan, and Burley County. This exact verbiage. And the fine is through Century Code, it's not Lincoln's. It's the burning of trash, rubbish, leaves, yard clippings, construction materials is never allowed in the city of Mandan, Bismarck. Not allowed to do those things within Burley County, so it's just aligning everything within our three communities. And a correction making be under that. So burning must comply rather than burning must be complied.
So again, this change, Mayor Berglund, is essentially just putting the verbiage here. It is not in any way duly restricting people, like there's no doubling over of fines or anything. It's just establishing verbally in our written code that we align with Burley County.
Correct. Okay. Correct. The city would not be receiving this. It is my understanding that would be a state or a county.
The city can prosecute up to a prosecution, so this could happen. For prosecution.
So it would be, it wouldn't be in addition to anything on the state side, we could enforce it.
I also just want to clarify as well, correct me if I'm wrong. I saw there was a post on social media where somebody would not even recognize this is a room ban. This
No.
isn't.
This is not. Absolutely. We'll have Chief Fire from the our rural fire department.
Mayor, council members, it's one thing to clarify, the first thing with the fine is when Burley County enacted their burn restrictions. That is for the county, and the city itself is that when Burley County does it, that is for the rest of Burley County, but that doesn't include the city of Lincoln and the city of Bismarck. They have to do their own thing. Now, city of Lincoln does have something that they follow the county. But it was, I think, right that Mayor Bergman, took what the county stuff was and kind of slid it into mirror what the county does. The one thing that I do want to do, and that's one thing that I wanted to address is, if we do any type of materials as far as where it's there, we want to use burn restriction, not burn ban, and that's where people get confused. What we have in place is a burn restriction, which means that a tie to the fire is tied to the North Dakota Fire Danger Index. So some days there's a restriction and some days there's not. When you use the verbiage ban, that means there, and that's what gets people confused with that. In fact, the last biennium, they actually had legislation that removed burn ban out of Century Code and used burn restriction as the verbiage, so there's no more confusion in the future. So if you go across, everybody's got all the places that are in red, there's burn restriction, but not bans. That helps, I think,
So
support what Councilman Bjornstad was kind of gonna get at, because I saw that post too, and it again to the citizens. It's a burn restriction, so it follows the fire danger where we're at. If the fire danger is in the medium, high, very high or extreme category, there's a burn restriction in place. Or if there is a high fire danger, that automatically puts a burn restriction in place. If we are in the low or moderate category, they can do controlled burns or follow what the city's policy is for open burning. Also, another thing to clarify on there too is anything with that's propane controlled, like if you have propane controlled fire pits or grills, those things even in the extreme category are still allowed because they're controlled by propane. So that is also a little different to where, so the whole goal of this is to protect, all the fire chiefs in Burley County got together and talked to the emergency manager, and thought that for the safety of all the citizens in Burley County, this is what is best until we do it this, and yes, it does go from now until October. But again, too, it's not a total ban.
And correct me, it can change next month. It's just saying we're going to follow this and keep eye on it, or because there was a post online too about, well, how can they know what it's gonna be like in August? Or September?
That's why it follows the fire danger. As dry as we are, that's why it follows the fire danger. And we just are right now, not saying that if we get a wet summer and all of a sudden it's nonstop rain for 3-4 months in a row and everything greens up. Is there the possibility that it could be changed? Yes, but I think the right thing to do is just keep it for that full term. And as long as it's tied to the fire danger index, there's really nothing that's going to stop people from living a good quality life. If we're not in that high, very high or extreme, they're gonna be able to do stuff that they want to for recreation. And I know the 4th of July is a good, a big thing out here. If we, by then, from what I know, and I can't speak for Burley County, but I think they intend to keep it in place from now until I think it ends October 31. That date was it? Yeah. I don't think they have any intentions of taking it down. like I said, due to the dry conditions, it's just gonna stay in effect the whole time. And we're just gonna go off of the fire danger index. And there's some, no matter how green there's some counties like out west, no matter how dry they are or not, they just do that every year. And put it up regardless, and then it follows a fire danger. And I think the commission does the right thing by not doing that, because we don't want to, we as fire chiefs also don't want to do it unless we absolutely have to. And it boils down to life safety, and right now that's where we're at. I mean, it's there to keep everybody safe.
Questions?
Thank you for
Thank you.
clarification. I think it helps people to understand better when they realize that it's tied to the fire danger index.
And I can work with you guys after too, like, if you guys want to put a link like on the city of Lincoln's website, ndresponse.gov is where. I actually went on there today, you go on there and you click on another thing below, and it's pretty easy to navigate, you can look at the burn restrictions. On there, it posts both Lincoln's and Burley counties on there, and they can also look at what the daily stuff is. That's one thing for people to also keep in mind, is it changes daily. So if you do a controlled burn one day, you might be in compliance. And the next day you can't be. So it's one of those things that drives you. It's not something where you want to do a controlled burn that you think that you're going to be able to do for a whole week straight, because one day you could be fine and the next day you're not.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, that's now a number of that, correct?
Yes. Yes. So at this point, does anyone want to do this as a first reading?
Oh, no.
I would approve this week first.
Motion. We have a motion by Councilman Bjornstad. A second by Councilman Shoemaker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the roll call, please. Bernstein?
Yes.
Yes.
We will have number 12, Capital Electric Cooperative, the upgrade to the City of Lincoln substation.
Hey, Mayor, council members, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Greg Owen. I'm a engineering manager at Capital Electric Cooperative. So hopefully some things came across. No, that's my fault then. Tried to send a letter here. I'll leave it with you here tonight. And give copies to everyone. I apologize for that. But just a few things that we have with our new franchise agreement in place with the city. One of the items in there is to have an annual update on the plans Capital Electric has within the city of Lincoln's footprint. So here to give you some updates on that, what we have planned in the area for this year. And the big one is really what the item is in the agenda is the substation for the city of Lincoln. We call it the Apple Creek substation, since it's named after the township. But the substation itself is nearing its rated capacity as the city's growth has expanded. Enough load has been added onto that substation where under peak conditions, we're now paying attention. We need to be careful with this. We need to make sure we have plans in place to provide secondary sources and so on. So what we'd like to do is expand the substation, essentially doubling its capacity. So not only does that alleviate kind of the present crunch on its capacity, provides plenty of room for future growth as well. So again, my apologies for not getting that across here, but I'll have some information you can review drawing if you'd like to. But basically a map of the city. So the footprint of the substation parcel, it's owned by our transmission provider, Central Power. It will all remain on the same parcel footprint. The fence line will extend a little bit to the south The equipment will be added more on the south end of the substation, but everything will be contained within the existing parcel. There'll be some transmission line work around the substation fence. Some of the taller poles will get moved and realigned. And then from Capital Electric's primary standpoint, we'll be doing a fair amount of work in the right of way along 66th Street from that substation area, mainly north to 28th Avenue. We have some facilities there we'd like to connect some upgraded circuits to. So this would be underground conductors that we bury from the substation to that location, both on the east and the west side of 66. So that provides us with some better connections for the existing neighborhoods as well as circuit plans for future growth as well. And do it all in one shot, get it very cleaned up and then ready for next phases growth. So that's the big project that we have planned in the area. I believe Central Power has submitted some information both to the county, and I'm not sure if it made it to the council members here yet, but some of their proposed site plan things. So that's kind of the next step for them. Once that's all set, construction is slated to begin June, July from their standpoint. And some written work and the fence realignment, and then the major equipment will start to come in as the summer progresses. And then capital will probably be more involved in this right of way type work late summer, early fall, just kind of follows in the major equipment delivery time frames. So that's when you'll see a lot more of our employees and contractors in that particular area.
Will this result in any outages or downtime?
We're not planning to have any of this. With any construction, there's always a chance. Just to follow all the procedures and state codes for one calls and things, but there's always the case something unexpected happens. But there's plenty of planning to go in place, commissioning steps, testing everything, double checking. That's goal is no outages. So other things I guess we have planned in the area, it's kind of on the fringes of the city limits itself. We refer to a neighborhood just kind of to the south here, Swansonville. This is along Apple Creek Road and 52nd Street. There's some existing overhead lines that we've slowly been strategically converting to underground throughout our service territory. And this neighborhood, we have targeted to complete that conversion as well this year. That would be later in the year, but that's kind of relevant to the city here, I guess, in terms of where it is. Again, my apologies for not getting this letter. It's my fault, but I'd stand for any questions or comments. Audience or council members.
Yes, and then you're
I
up.
got one question. From the engineering standpoint, did then talks with Park District at all? You know, we're planning on.
Yes, thank you.
Like that.
Thank you, Greg. I did have that in the letter and I forgot to highlight it here. We have been talking with the firm SEH. And they're planning the pedestrian trail on the west side of 66th Street. Yes, we've been working on getting that done, getting our cable in, make sure we're not on top of each other or any conflicts there. We had a very good first pass at that plan. So it's kind of still preliminary, but we have a pretty good strategy I think in place for that. Thank you.
Just want to make sure everyone.
Appreciate that.
I believe that's.
Okay, I'll leave this letter and I'll make sure to get copies to small.
Thank you. So, next on the agenda, we have the Code of Ethics and Conduct for elected and appointed officials review. I have not received any updates, suggestions, changes.
Yes, but that really, you're right, I apologize, I didn't say it beforehand. I did have a couple of notes of things that I would like to address.
Okay.
There are two paragraphs on page 7. regarding council member questions, inquiries, to city staff, and limit contact to specific city staff.
Here.
As a character. We will pop up with this. My thoughts on that one, it says a council member request from meeting with staff must be directed to the city auditor, administrator, or city attorney as appropriate. I guess I'm of the opinion that council members should be able to meet with city staff as they meet. The example I would have that I feel would be that this would interfere with would be if, say, council member Shoemaker, Councilmember Tavia would want to have a quick meeting with directorship of the Public Works Department. I don't feel that it would be necessary for them to have to go through the city auditor or the attorney to set up something like that. If you feel it's necessary to have somebody else be involved in that process, I could maybe see like the portfolio holder setting up the meeting, but
I guess this came from the former, which is just a general that most cities use. My thought process when reviewing this was that this had to do with the city staff here at the city office, not
so this wouldn't involve like.
the police department or the city auditor.
That's what it is,
So you're
elected
not
and
talking,
appointed.
huh?
Or when essentially any city staff be appointed position. On hires. So that is fair reason.
No, because the hiring falls under that department head. They hire their own staff. We do that, yes.
Can I explain a little bit of this, cause I was part of this, so before I got on council.
Please
Brandon,
speak.
Mayor and council members, before I got on council, we had a council member. That was constantly coming in and harassing our auditor and our office staff. And so I think this was one of the things we put in place. Because he was not going through the portfolio folder, he was not letting anybody else know he would come in and harass them on a daily basis. So that's why this was kind of put in place, just so you guys know, some clarification why it is.
Thank you. I guess however we want, the verbiage, I think, it all comes down to, okay, so if, and this is maybe where I wasn't going there with it, but if I was going to ask, say, the deputy auditor to do something. Because I wanna check into this, and this, I'm gonna go to the auditor and mention it to him or her. So I'm not directing somebody that works for her to do something.
And then,
Or the same thing would be for this department or the other, but that's how I took it, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's.
I'm wondering if we feel it appropriate that somebody else be contacted for setting up a meeting like that, if it'd be better to. Instead of saying direct it to the city auditor. Or something, maybe change that and go forward for that part of it. Yeah, like I said, I feel like. Like Councilmember Octavio would want to have a meeting with Director Sheet. Of course, according to this, she should be contacting
Okay, I see where you're going, okay.
the city auditor or the attorney to set up a meeting like that. I feel like that would be unnecessary steps.
And I was looking at it as a portfolio holder, I wanna go talk to one of the employees versus somebody at this table wanting to talk to us, to the departments, so, okay.
Would anybody have objections to changing the wording there to be the portfolio holder?
Okay, so.
I feel like that kind of falls in line with how we want the portfolio holder to be a liaison with the departments from the council.
You might be okay. And I think maybe keep the, or city attorney, because if there's an issue and you're wanting to discuss with somebody because of the portfolio holder, or.
Yeah, I think I can see that. If it's regarding a matter or something like that. I could see that. being appropriate. Did have a note on that work paragraph limit contact to specific city staff. But honestly, at this point, I don't know. That changes anything. I guess I'm not too sure what it's referring to as additional background. If you're asking for background on the regular draft. Questions of city staff and or requests for additional background information.
So I would take this kind of basically what I was thinking for purely inquiries to the city staff. Just so the work that we are, or the information that we're asking for, that we're not going to staff saying, will you do this for me, will you do that for me? Will you look this up, to take them away from their current duties?
Would it be better to have that state department heads? That would see everything.
If you want, when you're in there or out.
If you keep like the mayor as appropriate, kind of like in the previous term. That was possible changes.
Did we finish, Mayor, did we finish in the first paragraph that you had mentioned at the beginning of that paragraph, do we wanna change any of that as well?
As far as
To match the
counselor and
rest of
board.
That does kind of contradict itself then. Cause it does bring up the auditor administrator first sentence.
Questions? So do we wanna combine these two maybe?
I feel like they're
Little redundant.
Yeah.
a little bit,
Can kind of get rid of me first.
So council member questions, inquiries. I think contact.
just contact in general.
Department head. How about here, department head, portfolio holder. Or the mayor as appropriate. Down here, keeping this, or just removing this altogether.
Yeah, I guess I feel like the fourth paragraph kind of covers the, so I don't know if the top paragraph is necessary. As far as adding portfolio folders to that little part. I can see that if it's somebody outside of that one. Yeah, so basically making the change on the first one. Done.
Questions of city staff and requests should be directed to the portfolio holder. Because it's us asking the questions.
I feel like there's kind of two areas here. If it's the portfolio holder asking questions of the city staff, then they should direct it to the department head. If it's someone outside of that portfolio, then it should go to the portfolio holder. Who is that for you? I don't know the smoothest way yet.
You can say it like that.
It's not as two separate.
It's the fun thing with conventions, right? Sometimes it's easier to strike it and then write it.
Well, this is to specific staff. So how about this, department heads, council member question inquiries to department heads, and this one to staff? Do we want to think about how we want to write
I
that?
don't think it's necessarily who it's to, it's more so who the request is from.
So,
Maybe the top one could be listed as portfolio holders and inquiries to city staff. Would be the department head.
that would be down here.
So basically, like third person, but,
So here you're looking at.
basically one should be portfolio holders and then one should basically be all others.
Part of the others, so this is a council member asking questions of another portfolio.
Yeah, that got it.
This would be for.
I just like contact portfolio. And then the lower one essentially. Portfolio holder. To office staff. Or city staff.
So then this would be for contact between portfolios.
We want to specify one city staff in their proposal.
For this would have to be two.
Honestly, I think that first sentence could just be removed. How it be like something. That makes sense.
There might be an opportunity to combine the two
Yeah, since they're pretty similar.
under one sentence each, so. Okay. Okay, so I'll make this change, bring it back at the next meeting, if there are any other changes or questions, thoughts. Let me know if I can put them in, with you at the next. meeting. And then hopefully I'll be able to get some of the, mayor and council member handbook review and just to give you an idea of what that entails. I'm putting like the home rule charter in there, references to the ordinance or things that would be specific to the individual portfolios, how to use some of, when you're, I think it's my whole day now. Just the process, when you come in, the differences between ordinance and resolutions, and I know that we've all been around, you know that now, but for the people that will be coming in after us, you know, difference between ordinance, resolutions. You know, first, second hearing, when you need a public meeting and stuff like that, so just so somebody coming in. You know, what are some of the things that we should be doing? We should be looking at the ordinances, so, you know, kind of an overview of Robert's rules and how to address each other, stuff like that. So I really wanted to separate these code of ethics from what we're gonna do on a day-to-day basis. And that's kind of the separation to documents, but both of them would be or the handbook, the procedure manual would be more directing. If you have questions about this, here's where you go. When you start budgeting, these are the things that we're gonna talk about. And if you have any ideas of things you would be good to go in there, please let me know. I guess questions, comments, and good, then we'll go on to our attorney reports.
Thank you, Mayor. The first thing, Monty's been working on the SEH mapping contract. He's still reviewing, the draft of the SEH. We have the next draft to SEH for their review early next week, and that should be ready for council to review at the next week. Item two, the sewer regionalization. Monty's working with Greg to finalize, information for completion of the appraisals. And to try and get the city of Bismarck to make a final decision on whether it will ask for compensation for necessary easements. I know that's been an ongoing discussion with the city of Bismarck. The third item is the EEOC complaint that has been turned over to Ender, and the attorney that Ender has appointed is Brian Schmidt. So Attorney Brian Schmidt will be handling that. And the fourth item, the Apple Creek Trailer Park, Monty's working with the auditor's office to review the status and the options available there. Fifth, the water line leak, the leak within the side of the city has already been fixed, but Monty's working with Ray to determine whether Lincoln or Bismarck is responsible for the second leak. And Monty's been communicating with the city attorney for the city of Bismarck to get that worked out. Any questions?
I do, no, thank you. Next on the agenda, number 17, engineer reports.
Evening, Mayor and council members. On community report for the past month, all the meetings were kind of the typical meetings for council, planning and zoning and MPO tax meetings. Development applications had pre-applications sent in for Lions Edition. Haven't reached that for it affects a couple lots in that current subdivision. And Ridge Edition Ridge third edition. And we had a preliminary meeting on that actually this morning to discuss. Final plats, Ridge Edition and Ridge second edition, they were both heard at planning and zoning this past month. And they will be, or are noticed for upcoming planning and zoning here in April. Residential applications, 3003 Armstrong Street for a home. And no other applications at this point. In process, nothing new on the water reservoir project that is basically wrapped up. Sanitary sewer regionalization. Not a whole lot of change. SEH has completed everything on the drawings. They've got a couple of front end documents that they are just kind of working through a little bit yet. And some of that's tied a little bit with the brick grant. Since the last meeting, when Daniel Schwartz was here to give an update, my understanding, we had a meeting with Daniel last week, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had reached out to the state delegation to try to push or get some information on FEMA. So with that, still kind of working through some of the different items as Gavin mentioned in that his report. So any questions on any of these items?
I'm excited that there's no payment request on here.
Nothing needed this week or this month.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to our portfolios. We'll start with Councilwoman Artavia.
Okay, looks like the chiefs are both gone, so he's got to deal with me. All right. Bismarck Rural Fire Department has had 186 calls for service, 29 of those to the city of Lincoln. Monthly run summary, 9 calls for the month of March. 4 out of the 9 were emergent responses. If you want the breakdown, I can get you a copy of the report. They are in the final stages of their new fire station on the north side of town. They should be moving into the station within the month. They continue to train new part-time firefighters and are progressing well through the probationary academy. They have started their firefighter 1 training and all things are going well. They continue to be the chief continues to be involved with the current legislative session, and there are a few bills that will affect fire service. One thing that he notes is affecting everyone is the property tax bills. Last month, he worked with the Burley County Emergency Manager as well as the city of Lincoln on burn restrictions due to very dry conditions. Over the past few months, he has started the process of onboarding new fire management software that will replace the old one. This will take some time. They're nearly finished with the installation of the new emergency generator at Station 1, which was purchased through a grant. In April, they plan on completing wildland training. The focus will be on effective suppression techniques, working with Polaris Rangers and water tender operations. And the Lincoln Police Department has had 1,319 calls for service, which is an increase from 1,024 calls during that same time period in 2024. Now, this is between January 1st and April 2nd. Traffic stops, there were 594 traffic stops, nearly doubling that amount recorded during that same time frame in 2024. Officers have significantly reduced their administrative time down to 35 hours from 84 hours last year, allowing more time in the field. They're doing a great job. I want to continue to thank them for their work and service, and I just want to encourage everybody to thank them when they see them for the good job that they're doing in our community. That's all that I have.
Thank you. Councilman Johnston.
Alright, Public Works Department, worked on flushing hydrants at the 52nd booster station. Finished sweeping the streets, swept sidewalks after the last snow we had, and they were prepared. Should our snow event from earlier this week have gotten worse. Supposedly we might run into some wind and snow tonight, so please be careful in the mornings. They hauled some they hauled dirt for backfill for where the water main broke west of town. And hopefully everything is cleared up there, there's no more issues. I know some people were concerned with how this went out over the events. When there was a boil order for a few of the properties, Public Works Department did contact the owners of the single family homes. And then since the Public Works Department didn't have access to the permits, they notified the managing company. I did message with Director Shute that in the future, if something like this should happen again, and despite contacting the managing company, if they could still put flyers up on the doors, like the exterior doors of the apartments, just an additional way of informing those residents of any issues, that would be advised. So with that said, I'll ask Ira Wilson, did you want me to bring up approval of that bill, or do you want to do that? Okay. So other than that, the only other thing I'll mention is that we do have our spring cleanup day coming. That'll be on May 3rd. Again, it'll be at the Public Works Department and it will be from 8 a.m. until 12 p.m.
Right, thank you. Councilman Shoemaker.
I've been in contact with Mr. Brzezowski with the program director for marketing at UMary. And working with the EDC on getting the student to form the logo design or help gather data for the city budget. So it's a little late in the semester. Brzezowski let me know to have something in place where maybe something for a class that he puts on. But I'll work with the EDC and see what other cities may be doing in this regard. He did direct me to Kevin Allen with UMary and he works in the career service office. Mr. Brzezowski mentioned an internship, but I guess I prefer more of an externship. Or even maybe during the summer semester of practicum with the university. So the city is using the city cost for us. The same would be in class credit versus in his pocket to inform the services and put an option to the students know. I've generated this data and created this. So that's where we're at, both Logo and working with UDC. I'm not avoiding tree board in case anybody hears from tree board. I did have a scheduling conflict last Tuesday. I do have. I'm sorry.
The update, there's a new schedule on it. They're Wednesdays, not
The
Tuesdays.
Wednesdays, okay.
So you would have been ready.
And so I will make sure to move to the next one, which would be April 16th.
Well, they have been Wednesdays. So tree board just approved the meeting schedule. So that is updated. I'll make sure that.
And that's all I do.
Can I ask, so are you no longer looking for community input for
No, we are.
logo?
Community
or-
input is always welcome. More ideas, the better. So anybody with some community ideas for logo, sketches, anything at all, notes, just send me an email. This evening, I guess.
Do you have a target date?
Not at this time. of year.
Right. Thank you. Under my portfolio, it was mentioned that, I had sent, 2 letters to Senators Hogan and Kramer, one to Congresswoman Fedorchak and Governor Armstrong. The first one was requesting assistance in expediting the release of those FEMA funds. And the second one was to review the appeal letter for zip code. I'm happy to say that Senator Hogan's staff has been spot on. I haven't heard from anybody else, but he had, under both situations, 2 separate staff contact me and we discussed it. So shout out to Senator Hogan. As far as the appeal letter for the post office, in talking with her, it might be difficult because the post office aligns according to boundaries, not cities. But there may be other opportunities to ensure that those sales tax dollars get allocated to the city rather than a zip code type situation, especially when you're looking at so much of the internet sales that when I talked to the tax department, they said, well, whoever is selling then should know to send it to Lincoln or to allocate it for Lincoln, but somebody in Chicago or over in Germany or are they gonna know that Bismarck and Lincoln? I'm supposed to be said the same way. So just to clarify, she said that, this doesn't affect just us. So there may be a way to realign how those taxes are allocated instead of zip codes some other way. So just, it's in the talking stage as of right now. As far as the FEMA's brick grant, that they have one more request for information that they're going to be sending out once that information is sent back, I'm to let her know so she can get with FEMA and say, hey, it's coming to you, so hopefully that'll speed things up. Now. The newsletter, the first one was turned in and should be included with the utilities. Or the utility billing, in that it was basically, here we are, this is our first, the ordinances that we've been looking at was part of that, I had a submission by Councilman Bjornstad, Councilwoman Artavia, those were included in there. And anything that the citizens would like to see in that newsletter, let me know, and we can all work together and tag team and work on that. Also, something exciting and fun that's gonna be coming through Lincoln is this tractor trek, and we talked a little bit about it at the last meeting. It is through the Cancer Center. All the funds go to that, but they are actually gonna stop at the Tumbleweed here in town. It will be an opportunity for anybody in the community to come jump on the tractors, get up and close and have fun with that. Then they will do parade. And they're hoping that the community will come out and take a look at the tractors. I think he said that they're like 70 or 80. They're gonna go up on 22nd over to 80th and come down and then go along some of our road. So here by the school, over to Libby and down and then out of town to go through. Ultimately, they're gonna get back to Bus Stop Junction, where then we'll have free events or free activities. Free will offerings, they have hay rides, tractor driving, foods, drinks, and all proceeds go directly to the Cancer Center. They do have event t-shirts available too, so if you're interested in any of that, just let me know. I've got all that information. May 31st. Should be a fun day.
Sounds fun. I wonder if there's a way for us to make sure we get that information out for anybody who would be affected by traffic.
The PD is aware. We had a little meeting here last week. Earlier, the organizers came in, so Chief is aware of that. And he will have people out directing. Or are you talking about letting the citizens know ahead of time?
Yeah.
This will be part of our website, and I will ask our IT, or the Living Social, maybe put it out on there that this is coming up, and I believe that they are contacting the schools and sending part of their Friday flyer, I don't know if it's called that anymore, to the parents, so some will know that way. We'll put it on our website and all of that, but they are doing their own. They just asked me to bring it up and let the community know, so I'll mention it the next couple meetings. I believe that's all three for right now. Next on the agenda, we have our auditor's report.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad the audit is over, just to turn on, we're gonna start 2024s. Hopefully that's be all right. My second thing on here, I did add in your packets. Anytime, the businesses or whatever, are only covered up to the 250,000 in insurance. So what happens is the bank will pledge, I included in your packet the pledging, that I received from the bank that this is where we're at. Because if you didn't have more than 250,000 in coverage and something happened with the FDIC, it would be out your money, so they pledged. That's that. Back to Derek's, the Wise and Sons, there's two things, first of all. Because it was an emergency, I'm not sure if we have to actually sign the contract that they sent out. Because the work was being done. Came in after the fact, so.
Based on that email that Monty sent, it sounded like it was just kind of to have a record of it then.
Okay, so just file it. Is
But
that
I believe
what-
it would still need signature.
Yeah, just, yeah, signature, but they're, you didn't have to bid for it, so, just need to vote to approve the work, and approve the payment.
So then I would, okay, so then I would be looking for a motion to approve the contract for the work that was done. And then the second item to that, before you approve that, is the payment to them, so I actually now have an invoice. It came to $114,620.08, and within that, I would ask that the December 24 prairie dog funds that came in for 500,000, that we could use that.
Yeah, so for the approval of the work and pay order and that approval. For you, so.
I would make a motion to approve the contract from Wise Sons that completed the repairs to the water.
We have a motion by Councilman Bjornstad, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Shoemaker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we can get the roll call?
Artadia,
Yes.
Shoemaker,
Yes.
and Barrington.
Yes.
So then the next would be the motion for approving use of prairie dog funds.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve using the new prairie dog funds to cover the bill for the licenses.
The first by Councilman Bjornstad. Is there a second?
Can I ask you back up, can I ask you to specify that you said our 24?
Like to amend my motion to include the December 2024 prairie dog funds used for the licensed sons invoice.
We have a motion by Councilman Bjornstad, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Shoemaker, all in favor?
Aye.
And roll call, please.
Shoemaker,
Yes.
Artadia,
Yes.
and Barrington.
Yes.
Now, this invoice is only for the work done in the leaching section, correct?
Working.
Yeah.
Other than that, things in the office, we're just doing office stuff, trying to get caught up, Tammy and I will be working on getting the numbers into the actual banyan program for the 2025, under the auditor's directions, he asked us to review all of the accounts and to make sure that everything is in the right accounts moving forward to 2025, so that we don't have to go back and try to fix all them. Other than that, I do want to bring up something, this is with the police department fire chief audience. So at the event center, a couple weeks ago for auditors and all of that, one of the things that was brought up that since I've been here has never really been discussed. I don't know, maybe Brenda would know this, if there was ever a plan. And maybe we can have a roundtable discussion about it. The auditor from Ray and Tioga were there and they had the bad fires that spread. And we watched those videos. They had some recommendations, having lived through it, lost people through it, how close it was, how the calls came in. What the responses were, who should be doing what it. I don't know if the city of Lincoln with Burley County or anybody, do we have any type of an emergency? Because it could happen, I mean. When they got their first call, it was like 10 to 3 in the afternoon and it went so fast and. So they're recommending with the North Dakota League of Cities, you know, if you haven't or you don't have something, that you really all should start the discussion, get it moving. Who would be doing what, how would the calls go out to the public? Because by the time they made their call to the public, it was really hard to get out on the roads because the fires were so close and then everybody was jamming up and the phones were ringing and. So just, like I said, maybe we could start some round discussions, have them open to the public for input, you know, have the chief of police, Justin, you know, and get something started. Cause Lincoln has what, one way in, 2 ways in, 2 ways out?
More. Depending upon how you look at it, you got Lincoln Road going out, that way you got 66 going that way, you got the airport going that way. You could go all the way that way on 66 and there's ways, but I don't disagree with you at all.
But we want a room full of people, probably 150 people in this room, and they had it all on video. And, you know, it's chaos, it was crazy and, you know, I cried, I don't even know these people and it's devastating, even if you're, you know, I don't live in the community, but it would be devastating. But it all depends on how your elected officials and how your public and how your fire departments, how, you know, all can come together, have that plan if something does happen. You know, people were questioning them, like, I don't know if you guys have sirens out here that go off. People wanna know, why didn't you guys sound the sirens, why, you know, there was so many things that they could have done different and didn't. And it's been a learning experience for them also.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, we never ever really had I mean, and that is a great idea because as dry as it is now and for any emergency.
Exactly.
You know.
Is it something you'd be interested in, you
I
kind of
would.
live on that, so we can maybe come together, and discuss all this?
Yeah, I think it would be good, you know, if there are some things that we, you know, places already that I'm not quite sure if some of the small towns have, I think. It'd be something that we get for Chief and I and council and citizens to sit down and do. I know we did go through that with the Hugh Mary fires that we had in South Bismarck in 2015, if I remember right, when we were doing mandatory evacuations, and I was there both days, literally going house to house to house. And we were lucky not to lose any structures throughout those whole 2 days. And I think all those fire departments out west fought their butts off and did everything that they could. And without all of their efforts, there would have been much more life and much more property lost as well. And I think that's one of the things that you're seeing across the whole state, you're seeing in the legislature this year is the state is looking at doing a study right now. There's a bill right now, it's Senate Bill 2340. That is a comprehensive study on how fire agencies can coordinate faster so responses can be quicker, so we can be there for the public quicker and sooner. And again, getting resources if they're having fires out west. What do we need to do to start pulling stuff from as far away as Jamestown to get stuff that way if they're, you know, if they can help out and are willing to help out, you know, as you know, usually the east side of the state is much greener than the west, and we're kind of right here in the middle, can be one way or the other. But right now, there's already, with as dry as things are, we have a wildland task force that was started up last year. As all those fires kind of broke out, And we had the big one that was up, and we had that big one that was up in Wilton where we had helicopters, at as well. That wildland task force is kind of spun up right now too, just in the inevitable fact of we start having big fires again here. In the west again, you know, we had a little bit of moisture here and that's gonna give us reprieve for a very short time frame, as dry as it is. And I think in some instances, to give people a little bit of false sense of security, getting that little bit of moisture, it's gonna take a ton of rain in April and May, to get us out of the danger. So I'm very much open to that. And are you talking, like getting like an emergency response plan? Is that what you're kind of looking at, or just looking at everything together?
Well, kind of that too, because like they're, like, what is Public Works going to do? If you call him, they go home and a call comes in at 4:45. What are their responsibilities? What is the office's responsibilities? How does the office? You know, obviously you're gonna be getting phone calls from everybody anyway, but like, what would? How should our responses go? Like, what does our council do? What does our public works do? You know, do we have people on this side? I'm just gonna use Brandon because he's here. What is Brandon gonna do? Does he have equipment to help? You know, it's like she said, it takes a whole village. That took a whole village and all the surrounding towns, and you know, they still lost people, they still lost cattle, they still, you know, they jumped up the streets,
Yeah, well,
the office girls went driving around, which they should not have done.
I think it's really important because you guys are a little ways away.
Mhm.
And if traffic starts going out on 66th Street and blocking you guys from getting in, I think there should be, I think that's a great idea. And I would love to help.
They're farmers there, I mean, there's a lot of farmers up there, but they're farmers, you know, went out like in the you know, they started plowing or making,
Equipment around.
doing what, you know, so.
I mean, we've had in 2015, we had the Burley County Highway Department helped us tremendously. There was fire line dug in farmers' fields and all that stuff. We had farmers willing to help. There's tons of contractors in this area due to having a big city. So we have a little bit of a luxury, I like to say at times, that some of those smaller towns do not have, because anytime that we have like a big fire, we have a good relationship with the Burley County Highway Department. They have water tenders that they use for dust control that they offer up immediately. Anytime that there's a big fire, they get in touch with us. All we have to do is ask, and they have motor graders on the way immediately. If, again, a lot of times it's staging stuff if we need it, but starting that process right away and not waiting until you need it, because if you wait till you need it, it's too late.
You gotta have your list put together, who you can contact, and if something happens, you can call us as a construction company and bring our equipment in and help, or he can call us, or whatever, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
One of the things they said that helped save them, they had a trucking company right in their town. And they hauled water to wherever it was needed.
Well, we have water tankers out of the pit, I mean, there's a hydrant down there. we-
And she said if it was not for that trucking company and being right there, they wouldn't have a town.
Yeah, and that's one of the growing things, and you're seeing it, like, we experienced it last year for the first time usually, and I don't quote me on these numbers, but I know usually I think in a typical year, the state of North Dakota burns up 20-30,000 acres. I know that year that, like, when they evacuated Medora and all that, and here a few years back, in a 2-week span, we burned over 100,000 acres. So, and what you're finding with these things, and now it's spreading down into places like Nebraska and Iowa too, to where they're having a ton of wildfires, and as fast moving as they are, is you're getting a lot more. It's called wildland urban interface, where the fires start out in the prairie and then they move into the cities and stuff like that, and the fire moves in between homes and stuff like that, and you're trying to save everything, and it's, it is very hard, very difficult. And we had our first experience with that, and like I said, 2015 with the University of Marion fire down south there, and I think it was a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work, and the person upstairs that kept all the property upright and nobody getting seriously hurt. So,
We include this emergency plan and the comprehensive plan, so it's always available to the public, but people will be in there.
why, as soon as,
I think it should be its own thing.
yeah.
You grab this book and it's
Yeah.
there.
Emergency response plans are its own, now with that, with Landis, with what you're saying. I don't disagree, anytime I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, attorney, but anytime that the city publishes an emergency response plan or a comprehensive plan, that is now a document of the city, so it's open and public record at any time. And I think it should, it should be, there's, again, to emergency response plans, nothing that you want to hide.
Well,
Because that informs the citizens.
as the city grows, you're right, it should be part of that too, because you're planning for the future as well. And what are we gonna do as the city grows, you're gonna be getting another chunk of houses on the northeast end up there, so you gotta put that in the plan, and then the next section coming in, the next section coming in.
It's going to be a living document,
Yes.
so.
Yes, it is something that you review probably. And emergency manager, Slinger would be the one, she's a great resource because she manages. All the hazard mitigation stuff for Burley County, and she also is emergency manager for Emmons County. She had there, there's a response plan for Burley County, so she's worked with that stuff before, so I think. Again, this is up to council, but that's a really good resource that we can also use when we're developing this, because she has a lot of experience with that. I don't want to speak for her, but I'm pretty sure she'd be willing to help out. She's super when it comes to that stuff. The big thing also too, when you talk about that stuff, is that it is a huge drain on resources, and those things, and all the entities have to work together. Lincoln PD and myself would have to work together extremely well. I'm not saying that we don't, we do. Another thing I think, and Chief, and correct me if I'm wrong, with the new radio system that has gone into place in North Dakota, in this area, that siren project that I talked about a little while back, and I know Lincoln PD is in it now. Public Works is also on it now. We can all communicate now by radio. But which makes it easy. The other thing is too, with that radio system, you can also bring in those mutual aid channels that are created at the state level. That every radio, like my radio has those mutual aid channels for the state. Fargo has those same radio channels in the same spot in their radio, so it's coordinated throughout the state that if we decide that we're having that many resources come in, we can go to one of those statewide mutual aid channels or a regional mutual aid channel and pick that channel, and everybody has those. So communication, I think, has gotten much better in the last year and a half. I know the state is still building out the system. We're lucky that we live by the city of Bismarck, so as one of the big cities within the state. That radio system was put into place here first, and then now they're kind of spreading out into the rural areas to try and get that stuff. So we are kind of lucky in that aspect, because I do believe we have really good communication here now.
The one thing she brought up too is though, they lost all phone contact with everybody, phone lines and all that, like, what are you gonna do if that happens to your city? These are all things to think about. What happens?
There's a ton of stuff, yeah, I mean, the resources itself with Calculi Electric, with MDU, with all this stuff, all the power poles were burned, so power lines were down everywhere. So they just had to cut power to whole areas to prevent more fire and just danger in general, from, down power lines and people getting electrocuted, so there's a monumental task to put, I think, put a response plan together, but I think it is something that if Lincoln doesn't have it, it definitely should have it.
I've looked around and I haven't been able to find anything.
Yeah, we've never really had any in place, I don't think, as far as that I've seen either, maybe before they did, but. And Lincoln's growing, and it's gonna continue to grow, and I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
I will tell you from a little bit that I've dealt with stuff, it's always gonna be managed chaos, but the more that you're prepared, the more stuff that you have in place when it comes to contacts. And these are the steps that we have to follow, and this is what has to be done. And again, too, one of the other things is at some point you have to, if everything's running through the city and you can't have a command post here, where do you have one like if this, you know, if the city is taken out by wildfire, or does council change, or does this building here become an incident command post for the city of Lincoln? And I sit here with the mayor and chief, and we direct resources how they need to be. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes in there with the incident command system and those things to manage those type of incidents, so. There's a growing problem. A lot of places are starting to see wildland urban interface with as we continue to get drier and drier, so, and it goes beyond even fire, tornado, anything like that.
It's just emergency
It's
response.
been large scale emergencies in general. How is the city going to take care of its citizens? And you don't wanna wait until a disaster happens and then try and figure everything out. So I think that is a fantastic idea that she brought up, and I think it's something that we should really work on and explore. And put in place. Yeah, sooner than later.
So as part of public safety, is that something you would like to take on?
Yeah,
Or
let's try to set up a time that we can start to
do
do
some
things off.
brainstorming?
I would recommend at least and is public safety, and then somebody, at least one other person from council, so again, so you don't have a quorum, I would get at least two. So you have different, chief and I, and then I would say, like I said, Mary, we can work on that after the meeting, if that's something we wanna have discussions on. Trying to figure that out, but yeah.
Is that something you guys have to, probably ask the attorney, since you're doing a document, would you have to form a committee and appoint a committee, to do that?
Once it officially starts, but I think the initial discussions, so long as there's not a quorum, then no, but as soon as more people get involved and it's a regular meeting, then yes, the committee would be established.
Maybe just initially probably setting up that timeline. And we want to make sure we get maybe once a month. Well, I guess after you have scheduled meetings, then that is an open forum. So,
Well,
but as far as brainstorming what that's going to entail, who we're going to involve in all of that, maybe one or two.
well, and I think as long as we don't have a quorum, we're not subject to open meeting, correct?
Yeah, and I think it's more so as soon as the conversation has started, that you contacted Mary, Ms. Hanger, and get the conversation going. I think that would be something to add to the next meeting's agenda to then set up the committee, but I think while you're trying to just start the conversation, I think this.
So how I see what is, and if we need to set it up to do it, but the actual bulk of the work can't be done in this forum. It needs to be, you're gonna have to create a committee, and we're gonna have to do all the dirty work behind the scenes of getting the document all done, prepared. And then at some point, get it out to the citizens to see if they have input. Because if you try and do an emergency plan and do it at a meeting like this, it'll take years. We need to do it, but now if you want to bring it up formally, so who's part of that committee, is that what you're?
Yeah, and setting committee, I think it's. Making sure that you have the conversation started, so everyone's aware that you're.
One thing, you wanna have the right people, but you also don't wanna have too many, because then there's too many ideas, so I think that probably is a discussion to have.
Sure. And important for, I know Mr. Shook had volunteered to be on that committee, having some of those outlined with some of the equipment that you would, I think that would be a great addition to it, so.
Yeah, I would love to help.
So, okay, thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a great idea.
I just have one more question since we're on threads. I just wanna know. I kinda had a discussion with Matt. I don't know, people know this window on the inside, like when you walk into the little area, there's like the window there. The reception there, the reception window. Well, it constantly, if you shut the door, you move. I don't feel like it's a secure window. Like, I can reach my hand through it and move the stick and I can open the window, and I'm just saying. Since we're the first point of contact, I would ask that we could get some estimates for some better security glass for that area.
I certainly have no problem with that.
And then once we get, I don't know, 2 or 3 estimates, bring them back to council and. It's just getting to the point, people are already, people come in, you know, you just don't know what you're gonna get anymore, sure. Here, I'll come there. That's it, okay.
All right, I do have one more thing I have to give direction from council. So while I've been doing the checking up on the code of ethics and the handbook and whatnot, I came across the fact that for appointments of engineer, attorney, auditor, those typically then go into effect July. The contract we have is after July. So to be proactive and get those RFPs out so we can start doing our due diligence to be in effect by July. If it's okay that we start working on the RFIs for our appointed positions. Okay. So then we'll be ready to get the interviewing done and so probably the April, yeah, so that would give us, because it's a 6-week process, isn't it? Like you have to
No, we have to, yeah, we have to put it.
advertise
Yeah,
and then allow,
Yeah.
say, a month for,
I don't think you have to allow a month, I think you set like 2 weeks, or you set your time frame in there. And 21 days or.
so if that's okay, we'll start a little earlier this year. Sounds good. All right, well, we will work on RFPs and then maybe have that ready for council on the 17th, council meeting. For review of contracts. So. All right, well, if there's nothing else before council, any questions? Then we will stand adjourned at 7:50.